We want to pick up, this is the third and final part of the sermon, what to do on the worst day of your life. What to do on the worst day of your life. Somebody say, finally. If you haven't been with us virtually, or this is first time tuning in or worshiping with us, let us give you a quick recap. Here are the four things we've talked about previously on what to do on the worst day of your life. God gives us permission, number one, to weep. It is all right to let our emotions out. It says that Jesus wept. That is the one verse that most of us, if not all of us, can quote if we're called to quote on a Bible scripture. So it's all right for us to weep. Secondly, he reminds us not to get bitter, because situations and circumstances can make us go internal and become bitter toward other people and even ourselves. The third thing that he reminded us behind weeping and don't get bitter is sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, you can't look for anybody else. You got to learn how to encourage yourself. Sometimes if you get to think about how good God has been and what God has brought you through and what you're dealing with right now, and even though folks thought that you would not still be standing or smiling or moving, here God says, I'm using you as an example. I dare you to reflect on how good I've been in your life. I've forgiven you. I've loved on you. I've done what was necessary. You got to learn how to encourage yourself. Sometimes people say, well, church was dead. Well, you need to look in the mirror. Because church could never be dead if we learn how to encourage ourselves, because our own encouragement will affect somebody else. So we have to learn how to encourage ourselves and not to get bitter, and it's okay for us to weep. And at some point, number 4, we talked about this last week, we've got to learn to look to the future. That as bad as today was or is, our future is coming. And somehow, some way, God's going to give us the strength to get beyond our worst day. God's going to give us the strength to get beyond our... Think about the day you thought you could never survive, and yet here you are once again in the presence of God, in the presence of Satan, and saying, God, if you give me one more chance. So sometimes, in the midst of my worst day, I got to remember that morning's coming. My little grandmother would used to tell us sometimes, she said, baby boy, don't worry about it. If it ain't going to affect the sun coming up, you're going to be all right. And last I checked, the sun still comes up.